Welcome to our meditation and mindfulness. Let's start this week with a meditation. So let's find a comfortable seat, sitting up straight. You can close your eyes, start to settle in to your body. Feel the weight of the bones in your body. Feel your connection to the earth through your legs. Feel your hips above your legs. Feel your torso stacking above the hips. Let's roll our shoulders up to our ears and down and back, keeping them soft and relaxed while we sit. Stack the neck over the shoulders. You can slightly tuck the chin. Reach with the crown of your head up to the sky. And for this meditation, I invite you to use a mantra if you feel like it. So one common popular mantra is Om Mani Padme Hum. You've probably heard this before. Nick actually has a song on it, which is on our playlist if you have the playlist ready. So you can just repeat this mantra in your head. Loosely translated, it means the jewel or the jewel is inside the lotus, which means that enlightenment is in all things, or whatever you're looking for, you already have it. There's various ways to interpret it, but that's generally what it means, is that whatever you're looking for, you already have it. It's already inside you. So it's Om Mani Padme Hum. So I invite you to just repeat that in your head. It's a good way to help give your mind something to focus on, to calm the fluctuations of the mind. So if that sounds like it resonates, I invite you to just repeat that in your head while we're sitting here. If you have the playlist, you can hit play now. Otherwise, we'll be back in a couple minutes. Slowly start to deepen your inhale, bringing your awareness back into the physical body. When you're ready, you can open your eyes, rejoin us. So how was that technique? How do you guys like mantra meditation?
Good.
It's okay if it doesn't, yeah, it's fine if it doesn't work. I mean, not everything appeals to everyone.
I didn't want it to end. No offense.
Yeah.
I love that mantra, so it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's helpful sometimes when my mind is really busy. Instead of just trying to stop it, it's helpful to redirect it towards another point. So that's where a mantra can come in handy. Instead of trying to just quiet the mind, you can guide it in a different direction, start getting it moving in one direction. So yeah, it's just another tool to keep in your toolbox for meditation techniques. So this week I thought we could continue the conversation we started last week about what it means to walk a spiritual path. So most of you, everything I've been talking about, all of you pretty much already know, right? I mean, you've heard it either through books or from yoga teachers, or if you studied with a teacher or not. I mean, so all these concepts we're familiar with already. And we know that it's our mind holding us back from realizing whatever it is we're trying to reach. And yet we're all still here looking for something, right? So is that puzzling for anyone else?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that because this I heard recently from Alan Watts on one of his recordings that the teachings of Buddhism and the teachings of Vedanta, the teaching themselves are only meant to be a starting point for the conversation. Because as I'm sure you've all realized, learning the teachings by themselves, you can come to understand them intellectually, but in order to really integrate them into your life and really change your experience of life, it takes more than just learning about these ideas, right? Each of us has to figure out how specifically to apply these teachings to the individual circumstances of our lives. And so there's only so much a teacher can help you do that. A teacher can help you point you in the right direction and give you some ideas and tell you what worked for them, or tell you the things that they're working on. But ultimately, it's up to each of us to figure out on our own how these teachings really work for us, how we need to apply these teachings in order for us to realize whatever it is we're trying to realize, however you define your spiritual path. And so one thing, so I thought I would talk about staying mindful while you're really busy, because this is something that I've been dealing with a lot. I'm sure many of you can relate how to how to actually keep the mind present and mindful on what you're doing when you have 16,000 things you need to do today, right? I'm sure a lot of you can relate. And this is something I've been thinking about a lot more, because as I'm talking to you guys about this stuff, it's helping me really examine what I'm trying to teach to you guys. So it's beneficial for me too. And so this week, I've really been trying to make an effort to stay mindful while I'm working, while I'm doing my job, because I've been getting quite busy lately with all the stuff I'm doing with Abby, and now I started volunteering as a mentor for the Writing Academy at Elephant Journal. So I've got all this stuff on my plate all of a sudden, and I, I found myself in the mornings even rushing through my morning meditations, right? Because I'm so busy to get to the next thing that I don't allow myself to really settle into meditation because I'm so busy. So I've been really trying to stay more mindful, and it's been helping. And at least in my meditations, I've been, at least this week, I've been able to give myself that time and space to really settle in and find calm, so that when I go to start working, it's easier to remain mindful, although it's still tough when I'm working. Because especially for me, I do a lot of computer work, a lot of typing. And one little thing I've noticed, I'm always in such a rush that I'm trying to type really fast because I'm trying to get through whatever I'm doing. But I keep making all these mistakes, so I have to delete and go back and fix the words. So it's like with all this rushing I'm doing, trying to take care of everything that I need to do, am I really doing it any faster for the rushing? I'm sure. Have any of you ever wondered about this? Because I'm sure a lot of you have busy lives. And then so I mean, there's just the typing aspect of it. And I've also noticed sometimes I'll make some kind of mistake because I'm in such a rush, and then sometimes it takes a lot of time to go back and fix that mistake. And so I've really been wondering. I mean, I feel like I have no choice but to rush, right? Because I'm so busy that I feel like I need to be trying. I need to be doing this stuff as fast as I can to get through it because I have so much other stuff to do. And so I've been trying to explore the idea, what if I just, so specifically for typing, what if I pay attention to every single letter that I'm typing? I'm trying to type without making mistakes. And sometimes I can convince myself to actually do that. And I don't think I'm really losing time compared to when I'm just mindlessly typing and rushing through and making mistakes and having to go back and correct. So for all of you who work on a computer, this is something to consider. Mindful typing, like trying to see if you can type without making a mistake. And it's going to seem like you're wasting time and taking longer than you usually do, but I encourage you to give it a shot and see if you're really wasting that much time. And then also see the effect that that has on your mind, and see if that affects your efficiency in the other things you're doing. Because if you're not in such a scattered rush to type, maybe you can see things a little bit more clearly and take more measured approaches to what you're doing and the rest of your job. So that's just something to consider. Well, I guess I should back up. So I'm talking about mindfulness, and does anyone wonder what's the point of mindfulness? I mean, why bother? Why try? Why why is that beneficial to pay attention to every letter you're typing when you're working?
I think it contributes to fulfillment and ultimately happiness if you could enjoy the moment you're in, not so concerned about what's going to come in the future or worried about what you did in the past. And I believe the Dalai Lama, that was his part of his definition of happiness, is living in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm sure that's all of you know that, right? All of you have heard that answer before.
Yeah.
So why aren't you doing that?
Yeah, that's why I'm here and I'm crying. And then, yeah, it's like you said, oh, well, something comes up. Well, before I meditate, maybe I'll have that cup of coffee first. And then something comes up, and next thing you know, the day's gone and you haven't done your meditation or your yoga. And then you feel bad. And then next thing you know, a week's gone by and I haven't been on the mat. It's like, it's a matter of priorities and being mindful of your time and what's important in your life, setting your priorities. It's quite a challenge. It's
Yeah, and so all of you, anyone can jump in. So what is it that's keeping you? So we're all agreed that being mindful is a good thing. That's something we want to strive for, right? Does everyone agree on that?
I think what prevents some of us, including myself, from maintaining a state of mindfulness or even a state of flow is that we're just a human. And it's so easy to be aware of your emotions and that they're just chemicals binding to receptors, and you can be an observer of that. And when you are, you feel great because nothing bothers you, and then you forget and you start to let it bother you. And at the end of the day, you're just like, oh, fuck it. You know, like we might as well self-sabotage, you
Time
know,
for a cocktail, yeah.
all the old programming kicks in, you know. So,
Well,
Yeah.
something that I always think about in terms of mindfulness, I always think about it as the grooves on a record.
Mhm.
And the more mindful I am, the deeper those grooves are. And so the deeper my memory, the deeper my presence, the deeper of everything. And the result of it, if I'm more practiced in it, then I feel like in those moments of glory, of great joy, I am way more able to take it in. I'm way more able to build that deep groove.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think 'cause that's mindfulness and being present. I think a lot of the traditional goals of the spiritual path, whether it's realizing the divinity within yourself or understanding your identity with the higher self. I mean, however you want to phrase it, or how whatever exactly that means to you, all of it comes back to mindfulness. I mean, all of those states of being, of these spiritual states of being, all of them have at their core mindfulness, like being fully present in the moment and really experiencing all of the sensations that are going on around you in that moment. And as we've all had glimpses, that's a really nice place to be, right? It's a really wonderful and can be joyful when you're fully present, when you're not, when your mind is not on what you're going to be doing later, right? And so, yeah. So, what about the rest of you? What are other obstacles that hold you back?
So I wanted to go back to your typing example, which, you know, I remember my high school typing teacher telling us to keep both feet flat on the ground, and that if you crossed your ankles or crossed your legs, then you're crossing your circuitry, and your left hand starts typing what your right hand wants, and that's why you have typing mistakes. And so I have found that when I'm present and I'm sitting upright and I'm completely mindful to the task and what I'm doing, my typing is great. And so, but when I lose that, or I start to get distracted, or I fall into bad habits, and then my posture goes, and then when I slouch a little, then I lean to one side, then I cross an ankle, and then my typing is all shit. And so I think it kind of speaks to that thing of like having the structure and the practice of maintaining your mindfulness and being present to what is as you're doing it and experiencing it in the moment actually does lend itself to the efficiency and the clarity of purpose and a perfectly typewritten, email or, slide. So I never really considered that as part of my mastery of mindfulness, but this just clicked for me of, it's your habits and your patterns and how you support that within yourself and how you build it. There's a resilience to it.
I think that's really interesting and insightful, Carla. It reminds me of a speed reading class I took many, many years ago. And the first thing to do, is sit properly and upright and get in the right posture with the right light. And yeah, exactly. Similar to our yoga stances and meditation practices.
Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah. And mindfulness is in all things. Yeah.
So Matt, I have a question. So sometimes I feel like if the best way I can ask this is, or explain it is, when I'm with my yoga tribe, like you guys right now, I can get into mindfulness state. I'm aware of mindfulness, and that's a good thing. But then when I get into a situation like at work or people who I think might not practice mindfulness, then I feel like I fall into their category or into that state of mind. So I feel like I live dual lives in that regard. I struggle with that. Like I like to be mindful 24 hours of the day, but I'm not. And I feel like it's a reserved time, like meditation is a separate time. So that's what I was thinking about in listening to everybody. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Yeah. And yeah, definitely the people you're around and the people you're sharing attention with affect us all always. Yeah. And that's a tough situation for those of you that have jobs where we're out working in the public with all kinds of people. And I mean, although it's changing and mindfulness is growing in popularity, there's still, I mean, the majority of the world out there is not focused on mindfulness. And it definitely is a challenge when we're around that to not get sucked into it. And unfortunately, I don't have a good answer. I mean, that's part of the reason why I left the corporate world. Because I was struggling with that for years under the guidance of my teacher. And she always talked about how if your practice is strong enough, if your mind state is strong enough, you can go out in the world and interact with people and not get pulled into their drama. But I never reached that point. But I think the only thing you can do is be aware of it as much as you can. And it sounds like you're already noticing it when it happens. And so just try to notice when it happens and notice yourself, be mindful of your loss of mindfulness and try to pull yourself back into it. But then I think you're doing all the right things. I mean, having your morning meditation practice that can help you get settled, get centered in your own self so that when you go out into the world, you can have a better chance of not losing your mindfulness. One thing, if you're in meetings or around people, chanting a mantra can help actually. If like the mantra we just did, or any kind of mantra, that can, but again, by giving your mind something to focus on, it can help you not get pulled into the less mindful states of people around you. And you can also examine, I mean, just you can, so instead of trying to fight what's happening, you can also try to just go into it, like notice yourself. So if you're around people who are not mindful, you might try just going into it and not resisting it and just noticing how unmindful you get. Notice how busy your mind gets. Notice how that makes you feel. Where in your body do you feel that? Do you get tense somewhere, or do you get floaty? So just, again, bringing awareness to the experience of not being mindful is a way to bring mindfulness back into it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so recently I've been practicing more mindfulness, and one concrete example I can give is I would respond to an email and I would type out the response, and then I would look at it, and then I would say to myself, no, that's not a good email. And then I would actually just delete it. And I would just wait and let time pass. And then either I won't answer it or I'll have a completely different answer. So that's in my own world, it's sort of a mindfulness action.
Yeah, that's great. Trying to, what do they say? Respond instead of react. And yeah, so that's, yeah, exactly. You're doing all the right things.
That's great, Helen.
Yeah.
I love it when I send an email to the wrong person. Like, oh, wrong Helen. It's like, oh no.
Yeah, that can get really embarrassing depending on what's in the email.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of mindfulness, there's I'm kind of smiling because I have this app on my I watch, right? And at random times when I actually am mindful enough to remember to put it on before you leave the house, right? It'll remind me, do you want to breathe now? Right? That's a breathing app at random times.
Oh, cool.
And
Yeah.
half the time I swear, no, I'm too busy to breathe right now. It makes you slow down and take some long breaths.
Mhm. Okay, cool. So let's do a mindfulness meditation exercise now. So let's find our comfortable seats. And once again, settle into your body. Feel your body. You can close your eyes. And let's start to really feel our bodies. So start by wiggling your toes, noticing your toes moving back and forth. Feel that texture as they scrape against each other when you're moving them up and down. And really notice that sensation, your toes. And start moving up your body, moving up your feet. Feel the ankles. Really become aware of them. Feel your heels. Feel that the bones of your ankles. Maybe move them around a little bit. And moving up into your calves. And notice the sensation of your clothing against your legs as you move them back and forth a little bit. Do you notice that feeling of the cloth against your skin? That feeling's been there the whole time, but you just become accustomed to it and we stop paying attention to it. But that sensation is there at any time for us to pay attention to. So keep moving up your legs, feel your knees, feel your thighs. Maybe you squeeze those thigh muscles, feeling all the big muscles in the legs there. Feel your hips. Maybe you make some little hip circles. And feeling your torso. Again, as you move your torso back and forth, feel that sensation of your shirt against your chest. Feel, is it a pleasant sensation? Is it scratchy? Is it soft? Just be aware of all the sensations that are bombarding your body in every moment. Feel your shoulders. Maybe you want to wiggle them back and forth a little bit. Feel the clothing moving around your shoulders. It can be a really nice feeling the clothes on your body. It can be comforting, feeling that comfiness against your skin. Feel your neck, feel your face. Can you relax your face? Is your jaw tight? You're clenching your jaw, your teeth tight? How about your cheeks? How about your eyes? Can you relax your eyes? Can you relax your brow, your forehead? And so let's just sit for a couple minutes in silence and be aware of all the sensations around you, the physical sensations, the noises around you, the smells in the air. Just take it all in. Take all of that sensory experience all of it. Once again, slowly start to deepen your inhale, bringing your awareness back to the body. So how was that mindfulness technique?
Very, very nice, very mellow. Yeah. Oddly enough, my I watch breathing app popped up during that session.
Siri's listening to us. Yeah.
Yeah, scary.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of emphasis, or often we're seeking out peak experiences, right? Experiences that are really rich and give us lots of pleasant sensory experience. But that kind of a full sensory experience is open to us no matter what we're doing. You can always, I mean, did you guys feel your senses becoming and heightened at all doing that? Mm,
Yeah, I felt the fabric next to my body, and I never ever thought of something like that before. That was very cool, actually.
right? Yeah, that's a nice little mindfulness trick I've been noticing recently. Just feeling that nice, because it can be a really pleasant feeling, right? Just feeling that, especially if you're wearing comfy clothes, that nice, um, soft, warm feeling against your skin. It can be a really pleasant experience.
So
Uh,
Matt, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So I liked even how you brought attention to the jaw, because I didn't realize that I was like clenching a little bit. And when you brought up the forehead, I didn't realize that like my brow was furrowed. And so making those micro adjustments actually made the meditation so much more like luxurious. So that was cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah.
Liked it.
The meditation that we just did, Matt, that you just guided us with, and actually, it's got to be also hearing all of your voices, changes the mechanics in this noggin, and I think differently, and I love it. And it's an interesting state to be in. In fact, I just had a vision while we were meditating of being a helium balloon and floating away and loving it, but then reaching up and grabbing the ribbon that it was attached to and slowly pulling it back, literally uttering the words, "You're in human form, you're supposed to experience everything," which brings me right back to where you talked about last week, which is everything is as it should be. Like, if you're not in a great state, if you're angry, if you're frustrated, if you're having a bad day, that's exactly okay. It's what we're in a human form to have these experiences, and that seems to be mindfulness in a way. So it's like when things are bad, sometimes if I remember, it's like, yeah, everything is supposed to be bad right now, it's okay.
I love it.
Yeah, exactly. And because if we never have bad days, we never have negative experiences, we can't know what good days are. We can't know what the positive experience feels like without knowing the converse. Cool. So I thought I'd talk a little bit more about the ego. We talked about this a little bit last week, and this idea about, because sometimes, I'm sure you all can relate, it feels like there's something in your mind that resists mindfulness, right? That resists realization of this self, and that is what's commonly called the ego. And one way to think about it, and these ideas come largely from Alan Watts and Robert Wright. I've mentioned his book before, Why Buddhism is True. And so I've been thinking a lot about those ideas. And so the ego evolved out of this animal ancestors that we all evolved from, right? We evolved from primates. So we have the hardware of an animal in our brains. And our ancestors evolved in nature, living in nature, and nature with all its beauty and harmony, it's still a vicious struggle for life a lot of the time. And so that's our egos evolved in this environment, struggling to just to survive. And natural selection produced egos that survive no matter what. I mean, there's that line from Jurassic Park about life finds a way, and I mean that's kind of like the ego. The ego, through millions of years or billions of years of evolution and natural selection, we've all developed these egos that figure out how to survive no matter what. And the ego itself, at the root of our consciousness, is driven to survive no matter what. And it survives by solving problems for us, by figuring out solutions for the struggles that we're in. And so the ego is constantly looking for solutions, or it's constantly looking for problems to find solutions for. And sometimes finds problems where maybe there aren't really problems there to begin with. But it's because it's like that saying that when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, or how's it, something I can't, it's not quite like that, but you know what I'm talking about. Like when you have a hammer to fix stuff, everything looks like a nail. And so to the ego, everything looks like a problem for it to solve. And it's always, and in a sense, the realization of the spiritual path, finding our divinity, means letting go of the ego. And like we've been talking about, letting go of the idea that there is something we need to fix in our lives. And the ego resists that because the sole purpose the ego exists is to survive and find problems. And so that's why I'm sure you guys have had this sensation where you have some kind of realization about something, you have a little breakthrough about your life, about something that's holding you back. And for a little while, it's great. You're like, oh, I figured out that problem, and now it's no longer a problem. But then inevitably, through that very realization, the ego sneaks its way back in. Um, you guys know what I'm talking about? You experience that, I'm sure. Yeah. And that's just the crafty nature of the ego trying to do what it does, which is survive and solve problems. And so, but we need this ego to live in the world. Like you said, Tim, we're all having this human experience. We all have lives, we have jobs, we have families. We have to continue using this ego to get by in the world. And so it becomes, once again, a matter of finding that balance of using the mind, using the making use of all the amazing capabilities of the mind without the mind using us. You often hear the analogy in Buddhist circles about the mind is a team of horses pulling the chariot, and we're the charioteer. Our conscious minds are the charioteer. And so when we're able to control the mind and guide the horses and steer the horses, we can get where we're trying to go and really get there fast. And it can be a well-oiled machine. But when the horses are out of control, then we're just kind of running all over the place. And so it's just another example in the spiritual path of finding that balance point. And that's why it's called the middle way. We hear about the Buddha taught the middle way. That's because almost everything in the spiritual path comes down to finding a balance between two extremes. And that balance point is different for each of us. And each one of us has to figure out what our own unique balance point is for whatever particular challenge we're currently experiencing. So does that make sense? But I'm sure you guys, is that new to anyone? I'm sure you've all heard that in some sense, probably. All right, well, it's just helpful to keep in mind that in a sense, there is this force within your mind trying to counteract what you're attempting to do on the spiritual path. And so it's just good to be aware of that and be aware of that tension within yourself. And you're not crazy for feeling like there's this force opposing you.
One thing I want to talk about though is, the battle with the ego and the battle with being mindful and the battle with our own sort of spiritual development and fulfillment is there. But then you add on top of that your relationships with people or a partner, and what they're bringing to the table, which it's really hard sometimes to decipher what is yours and what is theirs, and so I feel like that paring things away and trying really hard to get focused and let all the chatter and all that stuff, that mindfulness piece is really important in knowing owning what is yours and not being swayed by who's around you. So for me, it's like integral to having healthy relationships, because otherwise you just get swept away sometimes by others, I guess. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of off topic, sorry. I mean, it's a little off topic of what we were just talking about, but it made me think about when we were talking about the mindfulness piece. I definitely feel like that. It's in relationship to everything else around you. It's not just you.
Mhm. And yeah, and there's not really anything off topic. It's all related in one way or another. Um, but yeah, exactly. A mindful approach to relationships can really help us figure out, like you're saying, how, I mean, especially if you're having some kind of a disagreement with a person, what part, what, what portion of the disagreement is coming from me, or what portion is coming from the other person? Because the, if there's a misunderstanding on our part, that we can correct within ourselves. If there's a misunderstanding on the other person's part, we have to work with that person to correct that. But like you said, being aware of that, being mindful of that is essential for sorting that stuff out. And that's where having your own meditation practice is really beneficial. Because if you have time set aside each day to connect with yourself and check in with yourself, then that helps you be aware of your emotional state and what 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 mental patterns are going on in your mind, and that can help you be aware of what you're bringing into the an interaction with another person if you're really aware of yourself. But so that's where self-examination and a meditation practice are really helpful to living a mindful life the rest of the time when you're not actually meditating. Cool. Any other questions? We're starting to run out of time.
Can I just say, Gina, I'm so glad that you said what you just said. And I'm so glad that this is recorded because I need to go back and listen to it again.
Yeah. But these are all the things that make it challenging to stay mindful in the world. Cool. Did you want to say something, Mayumi? I saw you unmuted yourself.
I did have a thought. Thank you, Matt. I liked what Carla wrote in the chat when Helen brought up a very similar topic. She said, observe, not absorb. And I was kind of thinking along the same lines. I was reading this book this morning by a woman that teaches people how to be leaders. And she was describing a situation where nuns were, a group of nuns, like a membership of women nuns, were attacked by the Vatican at one point. And the Vatican were telling them, basically, you're going to have to come under the doctrination of the church. And she said, watching the nuns hold to their path was one of the most beautiful examples of holding to their integrity that she's seen. And part of it was having an ethical code, knowing where they stood, so that as they moved forward through the process of kind of working this out, which was a years long practice, protocol thing that they had to go through, they had a route, they knew what was connecting them as a group, and thus they could move through this process, together. And prayer and meditation was a part of it.
Yeah, that's a great example. And like you said, like those nuns, when we're secure in our own root, in our own being, then it makes it much easier to navigate the world without getting sucked into it, without getting sucked into the drama.
Like our own personal mission statement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
Great. Okay, let's do one more meditation. And we'll use music for this one if you have the play. So get the playlist handy and I'll tell you when to hit play. And so let's settle into our seat. Close your eyes, feel your body. And for this meditation, let's meditate on the third eye. Because with all the talk we've been discussing today about knowing where we are, knowing our place in the world, knowing where we end and where other people begin, meditating on the third eye helps bring clarity to situations like that. The third eye helps us understand, helps us to see the truth of whatever situation we're in. So let's focus on the third eye. You can imagine that there's a ball of glowing white centered around your third eye. And for this meditation, just keep your awareness on that glowing ball of light, while at the same time trying to keep your awareness on the rest of your body and your surroundings. So similar to what we did last time with the mindfulness technique of being aware of all the sensory experience around us. So continue to do that. Be aware of all the sensory experience around you. And at the same time, hold this awareness of your third eye glowing in the middle of your forehead in the midst of all this experience. If you'd like to use music, you can hit play now. Once more, we can deepen our inhales. Coming back into the body. So that's it for today. Anyone have any final comments they want to share?
I just want to say it was lovely today.
Yeah, it's
Thank you,
great
Matt,
to see all of you.
and good to see everybody.
I agree. It's very nice.
Mhm.
100%.
Great. So everyone, have a good week. Have a good day tomorrow. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Matt. You too. See you next Thursday.
All right. See ya.
Thank
Have
you,
a
Matt.
mindful week.
Everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody. Good to see you.
Bye.
Mindful, everyone.
Yeah.
Hope to see everybody again.